antenna says you've gotta be 36 inches away from,
36 feet,
36 feet away from a building. We were 10.
but
Yeah.
And the coax has to be a 45, and it was kind of laying down on the ground, and we
well,
just,
that's pretty important. The
Yeah.
45-degree angle is pretty important.
But we had it
But
straight.
we did,
It's good.
Yeah,
He had
it's
90 degrees.
we had kinks in the corner,
Yeah.
but it still worked well.
it did, it worked well, and one AH4 went 2 meter, 40, 20, 10, 15, 17, 20.
I could turn that pen on an AH4.
Can't help it. So I'm gonna let Dennis talk a little bit and tell you what he's been doing and how he's done, and Marilyn and I'll just sit here and gawk at him.
Okay.
I just had to be smart. I didn't read anything about that comment.
I always heard if you talk, you need to stand up to be seen, speak up to be heard, and shut up to be appreciated. So 2 out of 3 of them tonight, guys. But I thought I would give you a little bit of background about Transworld and how it came about, and talk a little bit about the design, then ultimately go into what we've got. And I think it's set up in the parking lot, and it's I'm glad I don't own Transworld anymore, because this one is going to put it out of business. It really is. Most hams look to the future, and that is a good thing. But sometimes it's good to look back to the past, and that's what I did with the modified H antenna. It's basically a halfway vertical dipole. Now, the way it operates, and nobody figures this out, I have to tell them and they forget it, but you have a top section and a bottom section. In the center, flip it around. The antenna split with an insulator, so you're connected to the top section and you connect it to the bottom section. So it's truly a dipole, and every center section connects this way. So when you're doing a 2010, it's a halfway. Go hold the box up over there. That's another iteration that I'll talk about, but not with the cover off.
Oh, cover.
Yes.
You know, you build things and then people think they can make them cheaper and better, but they're really not. This is the original, center section for 2010. The coils are switched in and out by these relays. The relays are powered by a control box and control cable. I started out with push buttons, and then they got so expensive. Just a case was $70 my cost. So I went with a 5-position rotary switch, and it defaults. You say, well, what if it doesn't have any power to it? It defaults to 20 meters because that's the band that's open most of the time. But you click it and you can go 10, 12, 15, 17, 20. Center tuning coil, you really never touch it, but you press these together, separate them by, tune it, but it comes factory tuned, and it covers basically every one of the bands that I mentioned, and with about a 1-to-1 SWR. I mean, it's you don't have to have a tuner. And that was the original product. We built that, and of course, it's like everything else. Hams want something different than what they got. So the next thing I built was a 4040. I found out I had to make the wire a little stiffer because I was carrying it around and doing some radioing down St. Martin, and the wire was so not stiff enough, and it would detune all the time. So before we got them out in the marketplace, testing showed me use heavier wire. This is enamel copper wire. So we did 2010, then we did a 4040, we did a whacked up, people wanted 30-30, did 30-30, did a 60-60. I don't know, I've only heard 2 people on 60-60 since they opened up the band, I guess 2003, but the other day I heard 2 people on it. That's the first time I've ever heard anybody on 60 meters. But we did 80-80, didn't want to do 80-80, I knew it. The secret sauce of this antenna is the low low takeoff angle. This is usually about 24, 26, 28 inches off the ground. Has a 17-degree takeoff angle. It's basically where you would have a dipole at 60 feet. And why is the takeoff angle important? You want to put the maximum signal on the first hop. So you want to go as far as you can toward the horizon until you hit Earth and it bounces that signal up into the atmosphere. So that was always the secret sauce. It was not the gain. It was not necessarily the design. 17-degree takeoff angle. People say, well, what was the gain? It's a dipole. What's the gain on a dipole? Well, you can lie and say it's 2.4 dBi, but that don't mean anything. It's omnidirectional, so it's unity gain. But antenna people historically love to lie. And if you really look at them, you got to know there's dB and dBi, and does it really make sense? And then they got this thing about ground bounce, and you can buy a little loop, and if you got it so far from the ground, you'll get 3 dB gain. How you get 3 dB gain on a folded dipole? But they'll tell you all this stuff, and people believe it because they took the test, memorized the answers, and there you go. But the next go around, we made you can hold that up, Marilyn. For people that didn't want to power a controller,
Oh, yeah.
we made what I call the backpacker. It's really too heavy to backpack. But we had banana clips that we put in, and you change the top one, you change the bottom one, run any amount of power you want to. Don't fry yourself with an RF safety issue, but it does well. And it was, you don't have a controller, eliminated the cable, eliminated the controller. By the way, on the one I forgot to mention, we put a screw block in the other one, and we put a screw block inside the controller. So if somebody wanted to buy, they wanted to run 200 feet of control cable, they could, because it only took like 200 milliamps to flip the relays. But right here, we had a little screw block. So if you were innovative, you were ham, you wanted to buy, instead of a 37.5-foot cable, you needed 150 foot. Well, I could sell you 3 or 4. Why? Go buy you some Cat 5, outdoor Cat 5, screw it in here, make sure the colors are the right on each block. 1 to 1, 2 to 2.
Takes all the fun out of it.
Yeah. I'm not sure there's a lot of them can do that these days, but I had that in there because I wanted hams to not spend money. But now I don't think you can get that anymore. That costs an extra 50 cents, so they quit doing that. So they won't see the cable. Tim Duffy's a great fellow, but I make fun of him about some things. I moved down here. I retired. The HOA I have they want me to have an antenna out there. I just have to take it in at night, so they let me put a pipe in the ground, put a cover on it, put a little what's that stuff on there that you put around trees? Mulch.
Yeah.
So scrape the mulch up over it, and if I want a radio, I just take it out there and set the antenna in the ground, run the feed line back, and they love it because they're afraid of hurricanes.
They won't let you keep it out there.
No, it's in common area, and I don't want to keep it out there, but they're really good.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, they let me put in, take it out, it's great. But when I got here, I always want more, so I wanted to have something that I didn't have to change the center sections all the time. So I decided that what I would do, I would take a FC40, because I got 847, also got a 897D, among other radios. I hooked a FC40 to the center section. If you notice, you come out of the top, go each way. You go to the top section, you go to the bottom section. This one does everything from 6 meter to 80 meter. Problem is, it only handles 120 watts. That's the problem with Glenn's. He's 120 watts. Well, I don't know how it is in Florida, but in Tennessee, you don't get on 80 meter unless you're running 2,500 watts. I know 1,500 is the legal limit, but So on the low bands, then where there's a lot of static crashes and everything, they run power. You don't need power on that antenna. I mean, band's open, they'll hear you first call. On this one, you start using that one, and I didn't have to have multiple center sections, it did great. Well, then I decided, well, this one, is there something I can do better than AH4FC4? So, what we came up with, Glenn was a guinea pig on this, his AH4, did so well, he had a 5-foot structure, 5, 10, 15, and 5, 10, 15. So it's pretty good size. It's about 10.5 foot tall, and we tested it, and there was so much activity on every band that there wasn't any room. I had to move around to find an open spot to say N4ECW test, because if they hear you, they want to talk to you. And I don't mind talking to them, but I'm trying to test the antenna, so I find a place where it's vacant. But Glenn was 1-to-1 on all the way from 6 meter to 80 meters, perfect. It worked on any of them. It'll work on the MFJ if you choose to buy an MFJ. It'll work on AH4, work on FC40, ASGC, whatever you choose on a remote tuner. If you already got one, just get structure and go with it. But I got to thinking.
Well, what did we do for 2 meters and 440? We just.
Is it on there, man?
Yeah, it's
What is it?
wonderful.
We turned the tuner off,
That's right.
and we used the structure, and it tuned on 70 centimeter, and it tuned on 2 meter, and it was pretty flat on both of them.
Yeah.
So, structure by itself, I don't think much of it as a 2 meter and a 70 centimeter, because it's ground mounted, and usually you want some elevation on those bands. But the next thing I did, behind Glenn's back, I didn't want him to know, because if it failed, I didn't want to hear about it. He's bad about that, you know. So, I decided to use a 9-to-1 balance. It doesn't affect the SWR, it really doesn't. But it takes a 50 ohm feed line, or 52 ohm feed line, and since it's a dipole, it's going to be about a 400, depending on the band, it's going to be about 450 ohm. It's going into the feed point. So the balun kept the ohms from being an issue, transitioning from unbalanced to balanced, really unbalanced to unbalanced. It's is what it is. And I put that on there. I did 2. I did one that would only do 200 watts. And then I tried one that would do legal limit. You got your sheet there. Basically, there was not much difference between the 200 watts and the legal limit balance. When I did the original research on the 2010, about 80% of the hams did not use an amplifier, and about 20% of them did, and most that I knew used amplifier on the low bands. So I wasn't really concerned about the more expensive balun, because I didn't think it was necessary. But I did use the 9-to-1 that would do legal limit, and it did a little better. But I found out, the only thing I found out, it didn't matter to me, because I don't do 80 meters, but it would tune every band from 70 centimeters to 60 meters just flat, 1-1, 1-2 to 1, with just a feed line, and the balun is hooked into the center section. We're set up right there. It would not tune 80 meters without a radio tuner, without an inboard tuner, and it would do 80 meters. Of course, I've got PW1, and I can run a kilowatt through it, because it's got a 3-to-1 tuner on the PW1. But the difference is, if you wanted to go to, I show them the book, don't let me forget about it, give my book away. But if you go to DX Engineering today, and you want to buy the 2010, roughly $750. if you want to buy the 40/40, the center section, it's about $250. And 80/80, don't even talk to me about that. The reason I don't like an 80/80 is 80/80 is totally NBIS, you're up and down. Well, this is not an up and down antenna, this is made for DX. So when you get up past 40 meters, most 40 meters is still, it's NBIS, people use it, talk NBIS, you're actually getting a worse signal than if you use the wire. But we fixed it to where 40 meters is perfectly resonant, it's flat SWR, and if you really think you're having problems, you can put the bottom legs like this at 45, the top legs like this at 45, and you shoot up into the sky. The advantage, it really, you know, it works, and you tell the difference. You also broaden the bandwidth. You go from 7.0 to 7.3. The advantage of an 80/80, if you do 80 meter DX, you down 355 and below, you want a DX on 80 meters, you find your spot sticks to it, tune up your amplifier. I had a guy work DXCC in about 60 days with one. Another guy worked it with a 500-foot loop, Omni loop. But it was a heck of a DX antenna. But if you want to talk to the local net, don't buy one. And I wouldn't buy one. I wouldn't give $400 for just the center section. By the time you buy the structure, you got over $1,000 in the antenna. It's not a good buy. So what I wanted to do originally was have an antenna that you could put up and take down, that you could hide behind a fence, that you could really talk DX on, and it would be worthwhile. We started out $699.95, get the bag, get everything, and I got it down by done volume to $399 for the other one, and I was selling, I think the other one was like $119 for 40/40, reasonable under the circumstances. But this one that you're gonna see in a few minutes whenever we break up, probably will sell retail the antenna and the bag. And the stand is a little different, but it's outstanding. I don't know yet, because everybody has their hand out. Amazon has a handout, the post office has a handout, eBay, if you sell it, they have the handout. Dealers about anywhere from 15 to 25%, depending on if you got a dealer. So I got prices. He said, what does it cost to make it? $75 for a structure and $75 for the balance. $150 for everything. But if you sell it, you can't sell it for $150. You can't sell it for $300. You have to sell it for $399.95. But I looked on our antennas that carry the bands, 6 through 60 or 6 through 40, and the Cushcraft's got some antennas that they're like $499. So I think it'll be a good value. The thing I want to ask you tonight to think about now, what you're going to see out there is a rough production prototype, test prototype. In the next month, we're going to make what I would call a production prototype, which is, if you buy one, this is what it's going to be like. I like to give the club one, no cost, and get you guys to use it at field day. And you can keep it, or you can give it away, or sell it. I don't care what you do. But I'd like to know, yeah, we tried it, and it worked great. Joe Pater and the DX Club took one to St. Martin, and I was on the other side of the island. I was on the French side, they was on the Dutch side. They was running a special event for 10-10-10, and somebody told them, said they were talking, they're trying to get contacts on 12 meter and 17 meter. Guy told them, said, you need to get a TW antenna 2010. That guy on the other side of the island is ruining you. He's covering you up. And so they had one. Joe had one, and he went and pulled it out and they had hex beams and all this stuff.
Yeah, they had huge
They had
antennas that they had shipped over in advance.
Of course, he didn't know I was 300 feet and it was salt water all around, but I didn't tell him that part. But he put the 2010 up, and they made a lot of contacts on 12 meter and 7 meter. Hard to get DXCC on those warp bands. So it's a good antenna. I'm proud of it. Made a lot of money. Had a lot of fun. But the guys are pricey. We got to do something because nobody's got enough money to pay what they're asking nowadays for antennas. So we get this one. I'm gonna give you one. Y'all can put it up, see how it works. Be truthful. If you don't like it, tell me. Didn't work? Tell me. Think you'll be surprised. Two issues. Lightweight. This one is very lightweight compared to this. If you come by it, this thing is heavy. That not there in the bag with the stand and everything is what, 10 pounds?
At the most.
You know, you
I mean, I can pick it up like nothing.
Is it important that the antenna be powder coated? I powder coated this antenna because I wanted stealth. It's hard to see, you know, it's not gonna glisten in the sun if your neighbors see it, or somebody on HOA sees it, but you can hang a flower pot on there that, you know, non-conducting, you know, these flowers people have, you know, women have, don't affect the performance. But think about, is it important to be powder coated, or is nickel plated chrome, or nickel, chrome plated aluminum, or nickel plated aluminum just as good? And I could make it a little bit smaller. It's 4 foot, 4 foot, and 4 foot. But I think if I took it down to 36 inches, it would probably not be able to tune on 80 meters even with a 10. But that said, I've sold books, you know, between antennas. I moved down here and I wrote books. This one was the first one. It's a book about alien invasion, the locust invasion out of Revelation 9, and it's about ham radio. They use ham radio extensively, about shortwave. They have a shortwave broadcast, and this one sold between 50 and 60,000 books, but not this one. E-books, electronic books, 99 cents a book. People don't want to pay $9.95 for one you can hold in your hand. They want to read it on tablet, on computer, on cell phone. So it did well. Only had 2 people didn't like it. One fella, he couldn't make his computer work and he blamed it on me, so he gave me a bad review. Another guy said he'd rather read CQ magazine articles than this, but I didn't know Ham's read books. You know, we don't even read instructions when we get radio and stuff.
Read radio instructions.
That's right. So I didn't know if it could sell or not, but it did well. I'm gonna leave this here, and when you have the drawing, pick somebody and give it to an autograph directly there. If I was getting an autograph, I'd just say best wishes and me sign my name, because it'd have more value, because if you give it away, if you don't want to read it, give it away. But if you want your name, I'll say to John Doe from D.M. Barrett, you know, whatever. Have a good day, night, whatever you want me to put on it. But I've read some books, some of them good, some of them 3 different genres. That's science fiction. I did, I guess, erotic, humorous erotica. That's Caliente, and then Raven is really, really a good book. It's about life during the Great Depression in the Tennessee hills up there in a little town called Ferguson, Tennessee. So it's a good book. I recommend it. That one's got 4.4 on Goodreads, and Raven has got out of 5, and Raven's got 4.8, and the Caliente books are like 4.6 and 4.7. So
That's my book. I'm right up there.
are you up at 5?
5.
Any questions?
Are you trying to get a discount on the next antenna, or what?
No, I got my antenna, we built it.
He worked it out. I knew how it was, so he had to work.
You gotta watch this guy.
I know it.
Telling you.
He worked it, and I gave him instruction. He furnished the AH4, and we tested it, and I was amazed.
I was too.
Good antenna,
Yeah.
good tuner, and an excellent instruction. That's it, guys. That's all the excitement
We
is.
want to see the other
We're gonna take them out and let them see the other.
They gotta have a drawing and a meeting and stuff.
I got one here.
Yeah.
While you were doing the math and figuring out the matching on the antenna, did you think about going into an electronic, tuner
We did,
or
but
an antenna analyzer?
we used an analyzer, that's how we tested the impedance and the feed point. What's interesting, you bring this up, a normal tuner, and I'm telling you guys stuff you know, but a normal tuner has inductance and capacitance. That's the balance. This top and this bottom, these arms zero out capacitance. There's no capacitance involved, even though it's that low to the ground, it's actually 24, 26 inches. So it's only inductance. So when you see the thing we created with the relays and everything, the coils add inductance. You have to add inductance as you move up the band, which makes the thing look like it's got more length to it, more direction. But we didn't want to, we wanted to be the easiest it could be. We wanted you to be able to set the thing up in 10 minutes and be on the air and go from band to band and hop around and not have any, not have any,
You're not even using a tuner on 10 meters through 40.
no, not on that one, and certainly not on the one out there that just failed. Now, if you use a tuner, you don't pick up anything. On 80 meters, if you have a tuner, you can work 80 meters. But I haven't done 160, but I can tell you now, the laws of physics are not gonna let you do 160 meters. 80 meters, yeah, you'll be fine, but not 160. But everybody wants to tell me all the time that it's a compromised antenna. It is a compromised antenna once you get above 5 megahertz. I'll agree with you. It's not a compromise at 2010. It's a halfway vertical dipole. A compromise would mean you short it, you got a trap or something in there to make the difference up. That's not the case. But when you get above 5 megahertz, I really don't believe it's very efficient. You got a hamstick efficiency, and then you got a wire efficiency. Well, it's more than a wire. It's not a hamstick, but efficiency is different from resonance. But if you get too small a structure and too low a band, you're wasting money. That's why I don't recommend 80, but hey, if you want 60 kilohertz bandwidth, you always talk on, in Tennessee, you talk on 3980, Tennessee phone net. You're talking on 3855, which is the awful ugly net. Well, I don't think I qualified for the ugly net. I was too ugly. I had 3 awful uglies, but those 2 in Tennessee on different ends of the 75, 80 meter phone. I don't know what is it on 80 meter down there? Anybody talk on 80 meter? Florida, you
Probably have to.
I understand.